You ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 206. We record every Thursday morning. You can find us on the podcast, fortofnerd.com. We have, gosh darn it, you know what I did, Matt? I said, okay, I messed up like 6 things up on that.
Good. All right.
Gosh. You know what? This is. Let me pull it up. Let me have it in front of me. All right. We're not going to redo the video do-over. I'll cut this, but gosh darn it. All right, here we go. Whew. Take 2. Sorry. Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 206. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Matt, it's episode 206. And we have these shows sometimes where I don't know how to say this, but like one of us just doesn't have his act together. And it causes a little bit of a stumbles. 2 weeks ago, you had some technical issues, and the frustration was real. The struggle was real there on your part. And tonight it's me. I'm a mess. I'm all over the place. I'm taking extra runs at the intro that I've said 205 times before. I have a feeling that we're in for a good one.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
That's all I can say. We're in for a good one. So, Matt,
yeah,
it's been a week. There has been a lot that's taken place since we talked last. Why don't you catch me up on what's been going on?
You know, a lot of things have happened, like a holiday and stuff, but really not very eventful. In this era of COVID and things, but for me, the most exciting thing was The Mandalorian came out on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been just so excited. So we watched episode 9, which is season 2, episode 1, on Friday night. And then I watched it again in bed on my iPad. And we talked about it on Sunday night.
Yep.
And that podcast released as we are recording this on Monday.
Right.
Released today, right?
It released first thing this morning. Yep.
This morning.
So a surprise to the super friends. We just shadow dropped the first episode of our second season of the Mandalorian Sidekick podcast. I literally was just like, we recorded it, I edited it on Sunday night, and I was like, you know what? Boom, Monday morning I just dropped it. If you have us set to automatically download, you got it in your feed. If you don't, and you're just checking your feed now, you have 2 things to listen to this week.
Yeah, you do. And it was fun to talk about, and obviously fun to watch.
Yeah.
So no spoilers for the Sidekick, but I think I liked it.
Maybe.
So we watched Mandalorian, which is fun, and some Halloween-y things here and there, and then Saturday happened, obviously, and that's Halloween. So Emmy had us wear our costumes all day, and by costume I mean I had an Incredibles t-shirt that I wore. Jesse had an Incredibles t-shirt that she wore. Lando had Incredibles pajamas, which was his costume,
Yep,
and then
yep.
she had her violet dress, and she had like a face mask, and not a face mask like cover your mouth and nose, but a face mask like cover your eyes, because that's
Gotcha.
obviously the world we live in now as well.
Yes.
When you hear face mask, you're like, oh yeah, cute. Not like that. And we just hung out, did some fun Halloween things, showed Emmy the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown
Ooh.
special,
Yeah.
and she'd never seen that. She loved it. She ended up watching the new Charlie Brown movie. She watched it on
The
Sunday
Peanuts
for
movie?
her. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, she watched that. She loved it. She loves Snoopy, of course. I mean,
Come on,
you watch
Snoopy.
Charlie Brown, Peanut stuff, you're like, okay, Snoopy is
Yeah.
the freaking bomb, like coolest dog ever. So, and then I made some pizza dough on Thursday night, and gave it 48 hours to ferment. That sounds so gross, but that's what you do.
Sure.
And then we did. I don't know if I've talked to you about this or I've talked to the podcast. I'm sure that I have. Tell the super friends here. I've got that pizza oven that I bought.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I fired that thing up. It's probably the fourth or fifth time we've done it. It's just so fun. You can put whatever you want on it and it cooks it in like 60 seconds. You turn it around and flip it around. It's just fun. So Emmy loves to make the pizzas with me. So we made some pizzas for Halloween to have like a special fun meal together. And then Jessie, my wife, took the kids and they met some friends in another neighborhood to do trick or treating.
Okay.
And I stayed at the house and I set up. This is what we ended up doing. I know we talked about this on the podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago, what we were going to do for Halloween and stuff. And
Right.
I set up a table with like a cover or like a tablecloth on it, had hand sanitizer out, and then I had a bucket of candy, hand sanitized my hands, pulled out 20 pieces of candy and just kind of scattered them on the table, and then sat probably 6 feet away and watched college football on my iPad as the kids came by and trick or treated and said, "Hey, take one, try to only touch one, and have a great night." And so that was a good fun time. So they came back, and then we tried to keep the kids up late because it was the end of daylight saving time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
always an adventure with children. To
Oh.
anybody who's had children, it's like everyone, when you're young, it's like, oh, I get an extra hour of sleep. As a parent, you're like, oh no, oh gosh, why do they do this to
Yep.
us?
Yep.
So we kept them up late, like pretty late, like 9:30. And Lando did great. Emmy woke up at like 4:30 and was like, "What's going on with my body? I don't understand." I'm like, "Oh,
Go back to bed.
go to bed or I'm gonna kill you. So she's slowly adjusting. She's still not quite there as we record this on Monday, but um, anyway, that was pretty much what's happened so far this week. This last week. It was a lot of fun, and Halloween's always a great time. And um, yeah, excited for what this week has ahead of it. There's a lot of stuff going on, particularly 2 days ago as you're listening, and tomorrow as we're recording, as it's election day. So
True.
congrats to the winner, if there is one.
If we even know. Yeah, who knows?
We'll see. If not, well, hold on tight, ladies and gents.
I'm gonna make a bold,
a bumpy ride.
We don't get political here, but I'm gonna make a bold prediction. A bold prediction, Matt. There's gonna be a lot of people unhappy. I'm just saying that.
No, so bold. That's the hottest thing ever made on this podcast.
So we had a week. It was like, I don't know, like everyone's week, I feel like lately. It was busy. There was a lot going on. Oh gosh. We did the Halloween stuff we kind of talked about like we did on the podcast. We stayed home and we made mummy dogs, which are literally hot dogs wrapped in biscuit dough, but you kind of like leave little gaps so it looks like a mummy, and we put some olives, little cut up olives for eyes. Cooked those up, and that was dinner. And then we also had like grapes, which my wife said were like witches' eyeballs, and olives, which were like decrepit witches' eyeballs.
Okay.
It wasn't exactly the finest hour for like creativity, but the kids didn't care. They loved it.
Yeah, it's
So
great. Low effort is the best kind of creativity when it
yeah,
comes to
yeah, yeah,
kids.
yeah. So we did that, but as far as Halloween went, we did this Halloween parade. Someone in our neighborhood said like, "Hey, we're gonna have all the kids up here. Drop your candy off like a day early," and they divvied them up into these like brown paper lunch sacks, which were
Okay.
jam packed, by the way. But
Yeah.
we all kind of got and stayed 6 feet apart. We all just kind of like walked down the street, which is just kind of like this big oval. And we all just walked and we just waved at all the neighbors that came out to see everyone. Came home, had dinner. It was a lot of fun. We talked to everyone, came home, had dinner, and like we were sitting at our kitchen table, which you can see from our front window. And we left the porch light off because we weren't going to have trick or treaters come to the house. We didn't get a single trick or treater. And I was like, I kind of kept peeking my head out the front window a little bit to see if there was a lot of people. Dude, there was like no one walking around. I think in our neighborhood, the big parade, the Halloween parade, I think
Yeah.
most people just participated in that. Were like, that's kind of good. And so it was kind of an interesting thing. Like there just wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
people around. But we had a conundrum, Matt, if you will, a
Oh
conundrum.
boy.
What movie do we watch? We had watched The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, earlier in the day. So we started talking. Is 6 and 7 too early to watch Ghostbusters? Or do we watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? Which is because the kids watched Raiders of the Lost Ark with us a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
minus one part. They want to watch more indie, and I'm not letting them watch Temple of Doom. No.
Nobody nobody should be allowed to watch Temple of Doom,
Oh,
no matter your age.
it's
That movie is disgustingly,
yeah,
terrifyingly culty and
it's
scary.
it's too
Ugh.
much. It's too much.
Oh my
I agree.
gosh.
So we kind of went back and forth, like okay, and like we started trying to like dissect, and I went, all right, well, there's some stuff that's kind of sexual innuendos and some straight out
Right.
like not innuendos, like. But I was a kid, and that went over my head, so like we kind of talked about that. I was like, and there's a little bit of language here and there, and we kind of talked about that. And
Yeah.
I was like, and there's some jump scares, and there's the stuff with the demons and the demon dogs, and like I was like, okay. And eventually I was just like, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, let's give them a couple more years. So
Yeah.
we went to the Last Crusade, which we only got like halfway through, and the kids had to go to bed. But like you, with the whole time shift, um, we we just didn't think to change the clocks in their room.
Uh,
So they woke up at 5:30 in the morning. 5:30 in the morning, thinking it was 6:30 in the morning, which is when
mm,
they usually wake up.
sure.
Ugh, I was like, go back to bed. Daddy, it's 6:30. No, go back to bed. It's 5:30. We clocks change thing. Go.
I can't
Dad,
explain it
Dad, I
because I
know.
don't
I was
understand
so
it
tired. I'm
either.
like, just and the when I'm tired like that, like I stop using words. It becomes sounds and
Sure.
like hand gestures. And I'm just like
Yeah.
waving. I'm like, I'm not even like sitting up in bed. I'm still just like
No.
laying down, just like with that sort
Yep.
of thing.
Yep.
So they're getting used to it. The fact that it's lighter in the morning now when we leave and it's not dark is great. But it's pitch black by 6 o'clock at night now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're only getting deeper into this dark winter. We're like pretty soon it's going to be dark at like 4:45 and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'd be okay if we switched to like never changing our clocks so we at least have light at some point during the morning or the evening.
Right.
Pick one, just pick
Yep.
one. I don't care. Just give me
Yep.
one, whatever.
Yep.
Let's see here. Work this last week has been really crazy. Just like really, really busy. I've got a lot going on project wise, work wise, like help desk tickets just coming in like crazy. Um, which I gotta say, big shout out to the rest of my IT team that works back in Michigan because they've really been stepping up, especially with some of the new people that have just been hired. to kind of help take more of the tickets out here for me. Just because I'm struggling to keep up because I've got so many other things going. But today on Monday when we actually record the podcast was the first day of my new employee's tenure here with us. And so he started today, but unfortunately I didn't see him really till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I need to leave by like 4, maybe 4:30 at the absolute latest to go pick up my kids. And because we're under some mandates to work from home, like I had to basically just get him like bare bones access and just, kind of talk a little bit about some of our setup and how some of the stuff works, and then just say like, and dial in tomorrow and we'll do some teams meetings and trainings. And so we're going to be doing like a lot of remote training on Tuesday, which is election day here. And then on Wednesday, I'll go back in and spend the day with him on site, and then remote on Thursday, and then back again on Friday. So I'm trying to make sure I'm giving him at least 3 good solid days with me all day or most of the day, so I can show him around to the other sites, show him our stuff, like really start making sure that we're having that one-on-one, because it's this whole COVID, man. It's different. It's weird. And
yeah, man.
The nice thing is this guy he's experienced. He's done this kind of work for like the last 12 years. So I'm going to be able to drop him in and just start giving him show him the ticket system and be like, and here's tickets. Do as much as you can until you get stuck, and then we'll make sure you have the access or the thing you need or what. So it's a little bit sink or swim, a little trial by fire, but that's good because I actually kind of prefer that. I like to see how people work under stress. And there's no more stressful situation than saying to an IT guy saying, hey, you really don't know what's going on. You don't know our systems. And here you go. You're chumming the water. Figure it out.
Yeah. Nice.
It's happened to me so many times in my career. I like to see kind of how people respond, but I got a lot of faith and confidence in this guy. I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to working with him. So that's good. I haven't this week, so this is weird. Okay, so let's go back to I want to talk about one positive thing, and then we'll get to the other thing. Mandalorian, we're doing our Sidekick podcast like we did, like we were said a little earlier. I just shadow dropped it. I was just like, and here's a social media message, and it's there, and boom. We're gonna continue to do our Sidekick podcast on the Mandalorian. So look for that. We're looking to release those every Monday to give people a chance to watch it on Friday when it comes out, or if they can't get to it right away, Saturday or Sunday. But come Monday, we're dropping those. We are not going spoiler free on these things. No. It's the real deal Holyfield. So you better be prepared or wait until you watch it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Now the other thing. Usually I stream. And I play video games and I stream video games. And the last 2 weeks I haven't. And I don't want to make it sound like there's been anything like really big, consequential, anything that's like really like, I don't know, massive going on, because there hasn't. But just like these last 2 weeks, I just find myself at the end of the day tired. Just tired. It's been a long day, and then homework with the kids and everything, and by time I get around to podcasting, usually it's like 8:30 local time for me. But most of the last 2 weeks, by the time I've actually finished up with everything I need to do, because I've had to do some extra work or work late, it's closer to like 9:30, and it's kind of that point where I'm like, I'm just tired and I feel run down, and I don't want to come down and like fire up everything at 9:30 and take 15-20 minutes to kind of get everything kind of pulled together and almost be 10 o'clock to then stream for like an hour and a half and then call it and go to bed. So like the last 2 weeks have kind of been a bust for me, and it's been really sad because I've really missed it, and I've missed hanging out with all the super friends and doing goofy stuff like playing Fall Guys with the community, or playing uh, Among Us, or just even chilling and playing like Animal Crossing or whatever. So it's been kind of a down thing, and I've missed some friends' birthdays. Excuse me, and some streams. I'm not dying. I'm not getting emotional. Sorry. I'm just
It sounded like maybe there was some emotion behind this. You missed a significant birthday.
no. It just it's just been I don't know. There's been a lot going on, and I just it's just been tiring. So
Sure.
I'm hoping. I was gonna say, hey, Tuesday night, even though you're gonna listen to this most of you on Thursday. Tuesday night I'm gonna return, except it's election night, and I really kind of want to see the train wreck that's gonna be, because it's gonna be a train wreck. So probably Wednesday on this week, I'm gonna stream, and it's gonna be chill. It's gonna be Animal Crossing. I'm playing that. I'm changing my island up. I'm doing some new things. I'm prepping for the old Christmas event that's gonna be coming up.
Woot,
So
woot.
kind of changing things around a little bit, but I'm doing well, and I do want to say that to all the super friends. I'm doing really well. I really am. I've just been tired, and it's just been so much easier to be. I'm gonna kick on some pajamas, and I'm gonna lay down and watch a little bit of TV for 45 minutes and then fall asleep. And I've been trying to go to bed a little earlier since I've been feeling a little run down.
Yeah.
and apparently I'm like half dying right now. I don't know what it is.
You got the black lung.
I got the black lung, paw. So, Matt, I think it's time we do the thing we do every week to find out some information from the galaxy.
Let's do it.
To kill some boffins?
Yum.
I always have to let you know, many boffins died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you boffins.
All right, Matt, we're into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
All right, let's talk about one of our favorite subjects, and it's never a bad thing when video games get made into movies and TV shows.
Ooh.
Thankfully, we have
boy.
had recent success, and let's hope that success continues, though this had a recent adaptation that didn't go so well. Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
Netflix and Ubisoft, however you choose to pronounce it.
UBI soft.
Oh,
That's not it.
They struck a deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
To create live action animated like stuff. It's more of like an overall deal that like they're going to bring. It sounds like several different shows and mediums several different mediums to Netflix. So they're looking for showrunners. They're looking for opportunity for animation and for live action. So pretty much what we know so far is that there's a deal that has been struck between those two parties. They're going to give us Assassin's Creed stuff. And it, in the world we live in now, the opportunity for TV shows it's just more exciting. It's more interesting to us as viewers. And for something like Assassin's Creed, I think there's opportunity to expand on a story that's kind of interesting. In the video game, it's never really fleshed out all that clearly, in my opinion. I don't really ever fully understand what's happening all the time. This is an opportunity, I feel like, for a TV show to give us a clearer understanding of a story and tell it all the way through, and not in 90 minutes, but in as many segments as they feel is necessary. An 8 to 10 episode season, that seems to be the most popular size. Give us a good story and help us understand kind of the time travelness of it all, and the purposes thereof. So I'm interested. I'm a go on this. I'm excited for what possibilities might lie.
If this thing looks like The Witcher did, where they took I know that The Witcher is a little different because they based it more off the books and not the video game, but let's be honest, most people know it from the video game, not the books.
Right.
If it's in that kind of style, it has that kind of feel and that kind of production quality and music and score, and like it's got great casting, I
Right.
think this could be amazing. I think this could do really well. If they cheap out on it, no, it's gonna be bad.
No, and I think you're right. I think that goes for all video game movies. It's so simple to try and just churn it out because people are familiar with it, and that's why
Right.
we've gotten crap for the last 50 years.
Yep.
Until recently, when people are like, no, let's actually put some thought and some money behind it. Let's not do another Mario Brothers movie where it just
Ugh.
is so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, now we've got things like Sonic the Hedgehog, which shout out to Sonic the Hedgehog, it was actually kind of great.
We didn't think it was going to be.
No, it was
Ugh.
mostly a joke I was making on the
Yeah.
podcast like 6 months leading up to it. But wow,
It
pretty
was good.
Now
Yep.
we've got The Witcher, which was excellent, obviously, and I think there's some hope. And we've got Resident Evil stuff coming out again.
Yep.
Hopefully, this is
Yep.
an improvement upon what was done in the past. So I think there's that Netflix is a good medium for it. I think if they put their money where their mouth is. Speaking of money, they're hiking the prices up. Surprised everybody.
Hey. Yep.
You know, hopefully
How
they're able
how
to
bad
give
was
us
that hit for
quality.
you?
$2.
See, mine's $1.
Yeah.
Which, you know, you think you're like, $1, $2, it's not that bad. But you start remembering, like, I remember
Yeah,
paying
5 years ago.
Yeah, I remember paying $8 a month for this, and now I'm gonna be up to like $14 a month.
Yeah.
And my service, as far as like the number of devices and the quality, because I'm not doing the 4K, the quality of the HD streams is still the same.
Right. Yeah, it's yeah.
You
It's
gotta
something.
pay for that Witcher somehow. That
Oh,
ain't
my
free.
goodness.
That Tiger
know.
King does not come for free, Matt.
Almost. I mean, come on. How
Well,
much can that show cost?
Ugh.
Anyway, yeah, so that's what we got for Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft. I'm excited. I'm hopeful, but I'm not like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah, I know what you mean.
cautiously optimistic.
Speaking of not cautiously optimistic,
Oh, great.
I'm gonna throw some fire here. This is not going to surprise the Super Friends. I tried turning a corner with my pre-thoughts, my judgments on this.
Okay.
It's just getting worse, and it gets weirder, and like every time I see anything related to Zack Snyder's cut
Oh,
of the Justice League, I just get to a point where like it becomes almost rage inducing, Matt. So you remember a little while ago, Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, made a bunch of allegations about Joss Whedon being
Oh, yeah.
toxic and abusive work environment and this and that.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers, they did like an internal investigation, and then like Ray Fisher wouldn't like cooperate with them, and so they're like, well, we didn't really find much and whatnot. So we were told also that Ray Fisher wasn't coming back to refilm anything, but apparently now he is coming back to refilm stuff. Now he has publicly stated one of the reasons why he was angry, saying that Whedon possibly mistreated an actor, even though it wasn't him, saying that when the film was being edited in post, that Joss Whedon allegedly, because Ray Fisher did not hear this directly from Joss Whedon, he was told this by someone, which is part of his problem, is that Joss Whedon ordered that the complexion of an actor's color be changed in post-production because he didn't like the color of their skin tone. That's the quote Ray Fisher made, that he said he heard from someone else.
Okay.
So, of course, through all of this, Joss Whedon and his side of all these claims by Ray Fisher, they've been quiet. Like they haven't, like they're not getting involved. They're not sparring back and forth. However, Fisher's not saying who told him this. He's not saying anything about like what was manipulated or not manipulated, but that there are claims that he said this. And apparently Zack Snyder's people basically came out and said, like, look, there's no way that they that we try to change anyone's color. However, we had to do color correction because Zack Snyder shot on film and Joss Whedon shot on digital.
Mm-hmm.
They look different. So they had to in post like mix film and digital and put them together, and so there's always color correction done in post for every single film. There's always, and they said, but no way in any shape or form basically were they trying to change someone's skin tone or, you know, intentionally because they didn't like it or anything like that. And lawyers are refuting the claim. Basically, man, I've got to the point where, like, the more and more I listen to this, to me, because I don't think we're ever gonna know. To me, because it's really Ray Fisher's word against Joss Whedon's word, and in this case, it's like Ray Fisher's word based on something he was told by someone who alleged to overhear Joss say this. It just sounds like Ray Fisher doesn't like Joss Whedon at all. For whatever his reasons are, it just seems like he doesn't like him at all, and so he's trying to drag his name through the mud over this. Whether that's legit or not, at this point, it's kind of a he said, she said. I don't think anyone's really going to know. And so it continues to add on to the fact that this production of the Justice League had so many things go wrong with it. So many things go weird with it. Coming back, and now Zack Snyder's doing this thing with the mini-series, and now he's reshooting the reshoots and putting in extra stuff that no one's really asking for, except, you know, he thinks it needs it to, like, I have zero faith in this thing. I just have zero faith in this thing. I'm to the point now where, like, I want to watch it because I've talked about this so much, but I feel like I'm so biased, Matt, that no matter, even if it's good, even if it's the second coming of Superman 2 or Superman the movie, like movies that I loved that had Superman that were good DC films, even if this is, you know, the Dark Knight Reborn, I don't think I'm going to like it.
No,
I just think I'm too biased and too jaded with this whole hashtag release the Snyder Cut junk.
Yep. I'm with you.
I don't know.
I'm with you. And I'll just move right along.
Please don't feed me. Don't feed me right now.
Past this one because we don't need to anger the beast any further. So anyway, the UK is going into shutdown again.
Okay.
Lockdown. See you later for COVID.
Yep.
And a lot of movies are shot in the UK. Like a lot of the movies that are, you know, American made are shot in the UK, including the Batman, which has been through the freaking ringer. Good grief. And they're still shooting in the UK.
Wow.
And they have received a waiver and they will be allowed to continue shooting.
Really?
So the Batman, even though the UK is totally shut down, and I know it is because my sister lives in the UK and we chatted yesterday.
And she's helping do the Batman movie?
She is actually Robert Pattinson.
Ah, there we go.
So that makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
But it's like total shutdown again, like how we were for however long it was in your area that you were totally basically locked down, except you could go get drive-through.
And groceries.
It's that kind of shutdown out there. So it's a surprise that we're going to be able to continue to shoot the Batman. So thankfully that will continue. Hopefully it can remain for its whatever the release date is now.
Yeah,
it's
who
been moved
knows?
so many times I can't remember. But hopefully we can just get the movie done. I feel bad for all of them. I feel bad for Robert Pattinson. Like, I hope it's just the best movie we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I know he got COVID, and then there was the whole thing, like, it sounded like he got sent home to bulk up some, and...
So much going on with that movie. It's just... It's like everyone wants to work against it, and it sucks. So, but this is good news for once for them. They can
Yeah.
actually continue filming their movie. So there you go.
I was just thinking when you were talking about that and you said, I don't know what date that's going to be, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking, I think Wonder Woman 1984 is still the only movie
Christmas, right?
that's still technically on the books for this year in the theater. I think that's
hope
the
it
only
happens.
one. Yeah, I'm not putting money on that. So I went from something that I hate to something that I love the books and I want to love this.
Okay.
Amazon's Wheel of Time series.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now there's just a little teaser, a little 16-second video. But it's like this CGI and it kind of shows basically kind of like a little yin and yang of white bubbles and black bubbles swirling around each other, which of course for me, a book reader, I'm like, oh, Sidene and Sidar, okay, the two halves of the basically like the magic force in that world. That kind of makes sense. And we get audio only. And it's some sort of weird like woman's voice standing out asking a man whether or not he's ready to do something. And he replies that he's like not ready. Nothing else. No hint about which characters these are. No hint as to like what this is about. Now I've read the book and I can't even infer what this is going to be about. So here's the thing. I'm okay with trying to put some sort of like I don't know, some sort of teaser, something to help remind people that like, hey,
Sure.
we're still doing this. But I mean,
Yeah.
this is like the most generic thing at all. And I'm kind of like, no. How about you just put out a statement that just says like, hey guys,
Yeah.
the Wheel of Time is still going forward. We're looking forward to telling you exciting stories based off a beloved book series by Robert Jordan. We're hoping to show this to you now, soon, in the future, or something. Instead,
Right.
it's like, and here's a little computer-generated thing that I think it could be done by anyone. An app probably could do this. And then some like audio like, oh no, are you ready to do this? I don't think so. Like it's just, Matt, you and I could do better. I could do
that
better.
sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Having no understanding of what the Wheel of Time is, only hearing about it, that makes me frustrated. I mean, maybe it's like an accidental like audio leak from like one of their meetings. Like, are you ready to actually shoot this? And they're like, no, I'm not ready. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand the Wheel of Time. See you guys. Who knows? I wish we'd get some for Lord of the Rings from Amazon. I feel like
Right.
that thing's been
Yep.
like
Yeah, I know.
news? Like one thing? Like give me something?
So as
Gosh.
a fan, I want information. As a podcaster of nerd and pop culture, we need things so that we can talk about and be excited about week after week. But I mean, come on. Like there's a point where I'm like,
That's dumb.
This is not hyping people up. This is not going to get people excited. This is just like, hey, we're over here. Guys.
Right.
And it's the kid in the corner waving like, remember me? Hey, I'm still here. Don't, guys, no, wait, come back.
Yeah.
That's what that is. I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
I'm not a
man.
fan of that. Just put out a press release. Or take a still shot. I mean, kind of like we talked about last week with Tom Holland for the Uncharted movie. Did we get a lot of info? No, we got 4 still shots. We got some tweets by Nolan North, a tweet or an Instagram post by Tom Holland. We didn't get a ton of stuff, but we saw a few things that are identifiable, a few things that you could kind of cling to and go, ooh, look at this, look at that, da, da, da. But it wasn't just like some random audio that like no one's going to associate with. Like if they would have like used some dialogue from a key piece of a scene with some names that are dropped and some different voices, so we could like, oh, this is this person's voice for that, like then people could like start to pick things out a little bit. No, none of that.
Yeah.
Not a fan. I'm a fan of the Wheel of Time, not of this.
To give us something to talk about how dumb it was.
Yeah.
Moving
Yeah.
along to something that a lot of people are upset about and a lot of people think is dumb. Well, they don't think that Charlie Brown is dumb.
No.
However, it was recently revealed that Apple has the exclusive rights to the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, think like the Thanksgiving Charlie Brown, and the Christmas Charlie Brown.
Ugh.
And they will not be airing on television this year, as it has been a tradition for many years.
Decades.
There are lots of people that are very upset by this. And I thought, well, let's just chat about this. Is this good? Is this bad? Are you indifferent? What are your thoughts?
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't have anything to do.
Let me kick this off.
No. Let me just say this. I shouldn't. Maybe I should have less to do with picking Rebel Intelligence items on weeks that I don't know, apparently saucy, because I've got fire on this, and like it's peanuts, man. Yeah, it's freaking Charles M. Schulz, which, by the way, when we watched The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, it said created by Charles M. Schulz. Charlie looked at that and goes, "Dad, that's my real name." I'm like, "You're right. You guys share the same name." He goes, "I did this." I'm like, I wish we'd have a little more money in the family. Yeah. Listen here, Charles Manson. No.
Well,
see,
let's dwell on that.
Let's not. Okay, so bringing it back. Here's the thing with the Charlie Brown specials. Okay.
Yeah.
I get that these streaming services need to snap up intellectual property. Okay. Mm-hmm. Disney Plus has got on lockdown Marvel, Star Wars, and all the Fox things. Those are big intellectual properties. People will go and get a Disney Plus subscription because they want to see The Mandalorian. Because they want to go see Moon Knight that we talked about last week. Or, She-Hulk. Or Captain America and the Winter Soldier. WandaVision. The Loki. Like, they will go for those things. They will get a Netflix subscription to go watch, of all things, Tiger King. Or The Witcher, or maybe this Assassin's Creed. Apple Plus is not drawing people in with their own shows. At best, their own shows are somewhat just mediocre. People aren't flocking to the service because they have this killer show, or they bought this big intellectual property. So, are you really going to run out and run over and get Apple Plus so you can watch The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, the Charlie Brown Christmas special? No, you're not. So at this point, locking it behind your paywall, keeping it behind your service in your ecosystem when this has been on the air for decades and is a traditional holiday staple for millions and millions of people around the world, I think it's a bad play. And I know they have said, hey, we're going to make it for like a couple days before and a couple days after available for free on Apple Plus. Like, but you still have to have an Apple TV or an iPhone that you can watch it on, or an iPad. You can't just log in with an Android tablet or an Android phone and watch this thing on those days. So it does make it that, like, hey, if you're in our ecosystem and you don't have Apple Plus, you still can see it around the holidays and gather the family. It's just weird to me. And I get it. They purchased it. They own it. They can do whatever they want with it. They have that right. I just think that this is from a PR standpoint, it's kind of a bad move. Like, why don't you own it and show it, do something special with it, maybe do some sort of, like, I don't know, in-depth documentary about it, or about the creation of the Peanuts, or these specials. Do some things that, like, would be interesting that people may want to watch different, and still make these available that they can be broadcast on normal broadcast television. Because I probably wouldn't get Apple Plus just for that, but if there was like an hour long like documentary about the making of the Christmas special and all the things that went into it and why they chose jazz music and why that was like a controversial decision and how people didn't know that that was going to work.
Right.
Like, I would be interested in that, but I'm not going to pay for Apple Plus to go see a cartoon that I've seen every year for Christmas for years and decades of my life. I don't need to pay to see it. I've seen it way too much. And here's the other thing. I already own it. And I think a lot of people already own it or have access to someone who owns it because it has been a staple for so long. That's my take on it. No, I can be done. I can keep going. What would you like me to do?
My goodness, he's spitting fire tonight. Here's my take. I don't care.
Okay.
And I will say this, Apple TV Plus is not just available on Apple devices. You can watch it on Roku, you can watch it on PlayStation, you can watch it on Xbox, you can watch it on your PC. So I will say there's a slight correction to your critique.
Boo.
And Android devices.
Boo.
But I think you have to
know
use your browser. I do think that maybe it's not intuitive.
No,
on
it's
like
not going
an
to be
Android
easy.
device. But on my Roku, I watch it on my Roku. We have Apple TV Plus because they gave it to me for free for a year.
Yeah.
And then I noticed they have to be struggling because they extended my free trial through February. So I know that they are in need of some help. And I have plugged an Apple TV Plus show before in Home Before Dark, which is an excellent TV show. I will also make a plug. I forgot to do this in my weekly update. I watched Ted Lasso, which is an excellent TV show. I mean, really, really feel good. If you want a hilarious, fun, feel good TV show, it is excellent with a great cast. There is some profanity in there, which I wasn't a big fan of, but there's none of the other stuff in it. And I will say this, for somebody like me and Jesse, this has been good. The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, we watched on Apple TV Plus. It came in crystal clear, Dolby Vision, 4K HDR, and we had access to it. And I didn't grow up watching these specials. I never recorded on TV, and I wasn't going to record them now. I don't care. But Emmy loves them, and now she has access to them, and she can watch them whenever she wants. She doesn't have to wait for it to come on TV. Like, we can just watch it whenever we want. I'm not going to buy them.
Okay.
It's not worth it. They're expensive. Like, they're very proud of their specials, which they should be because
they're amazing.
It's a timeless classic that they can charge whatever they want for. So for us, it's great. But that's because I get it for free. The second Apple TV Plus becomes something I have to pay for, I'm going to cancel it.
Yeah.
Until they can figure out how to make consistent shows that I want to watch. And when I don't, I'll hop back on for $6. It's $6 for a month.
So
I'll watch it then.
I'll give you this analogy. I pay for Hulu, Disney Plus, and Netflix. Okay. Now, I get Amazon Prime Video because it comes along with my Amazon Prime. I pay the $99 a year so I can get 2 days shipping.
Yeah.
They included the video, and they've included other stuff with it, okay? Like, now I can get some, like, Audible stuff and trials of this. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
I watch some of their Prime shows. Like, I'm trying to watch The Boys. I haven't got back to it, but I've watched the Jack Reacher stuff. My wife has watched the Marvelous Miss Maisel. Like, I know they're putting out some quality content, but I only have that because it comes with my Prime. If I had to pay additional for that, nah, I'm not.
Yep.
Because most of the time, there's not enough quality stuff there that I want to see. Like, if there's a lot of original stuff, it's coming to Netflix. Like, that's where I'm going for a lot of the original stuff because everyone's got Netflix. That's the big one. If it's all the Disney stuff, I'm going to Disney Plus. So, like, that's the thing with Apple Plus for me.
Yep.
Verizon's giving it away. Like, if you get a new Verizon contract, it's like, here's 6 months of Apple Plus or a year of Apple Plus. And it's like, great. But I'm not paying for that service. And I'm definitely not paying for that service to get movies that I've seen
No.
and already own. Like
Right.
that doesn't draw me in. So
Agreed. I'm with you. I'm not going to argue with that.
yeah. All right. The last thing I have, and the fire is over. This is very like. Listen, this 1 minute and 15 seconds was probably the highlight of my week outside of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
So, over on, I think it's, I'm trying to remember where it was. It wasn't Disney Kids or Star Wars Kids. Over on Star Wars Kids, of all places, they put a little short that they created, a little animated short of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the art style of this thing reminds me of, it's kind of like I don't know if you remember a little while ago that some fan made some art that basically was like A New Hope, and it was like in 5 minutes or something like that. And
yeah.
it kind of has a Japanese anime feel to it, but not as like hardcore in that anime, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like traditional American animation. Anyway,
right.
It is about Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's 1 minute and 15 seconds long. Every super friend needs to go watch this video this week. It's good, y'all. It's just a little clip of showing like Obi-Wan when he was a teenage Padawan to becoming a full Jedi Knight, to becoming a full Jedi Master, to training Anakin, to then retiring to the desert and training Luke. And when I watched this thing and they showed all these little things, I gotta say, Matt, I'm so used to in the Star Wars universe thinking Luke Skywalker is one of my favorite Jedi Knights. For the longest time, it's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I watched this thing and I went, I think Obi-Wan is probably the most amazing Jedi Knight ever. Like, just look,
he's the coolest, man.
Just look at like his resume of Jedi Knight feats and things he's been involved in and things like he helped turn the tide on. And it's 1 minute and 15 seconds. It's on Star Wars Kids. Everyone needs to go watch this. It was amazing. I've probably watched it 15 times over. It gets me so pumped and excited and reminds me. And this is where something like this, even though it's not directly related to what I'm about to say, this is the way you do this, super friends. This is the way. It has me pumped for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that's eventually going to come to Disney Plus. It never mentions the Disney Plus series. It never mentions that Disney Plus is discovering it, that there's going to be a thing. They just put this thing out there and they're like, Obi-Wan's a baddie. Watch this. Obi-Wan's a baddie. And you're like, he is amazing. And then you think, oh yeah, and we're going to get a series about Obi-Wan. It's amazing.
Even though it's just going to be like 6 episodes long, kind of a one-off series, it's my excitement level is very high.
Yes.
Obi-Wan is so storied and so fantastic, and though I relate more to Luke Skywalker just as an individual, when you think about the best Jedi Knights of all time, if you can argue with me that it's not Obi-Wan, I would be shocked, because you can't.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is the greatest of all time. From what we know about Jedi and what we know about Star Wars,
that's
and
canon.
We'll have new light shed soon on other people. I hope, man. There's so much more they could do, and if they create somebody half as good as Obi-Wan, I'm going to be so excited.
Yep.
It's excellent. Watch it. It is 1 minute 15. Just look for it. It's awesome.
Yep, I agree. That was the last thing I had. Did you have anything else?
I'm out, man. I'm out.
All right. So, Matt, last week we asked a question. We asked the Super Friends, what's like your favorite Halloween movie? What's your go-to Halloween movie? What's that like one movie you can't miss? And we got some answers. So, we're going to start over on email like we always do, fortofnerd@gmail.com. We've got Peter Christensen. Dear Nerds, I make sure never to go house shopping in places with lower cost of living. I only look at acreage, waterfront, mansions, or exclusive neighborhoods and Hawaii. It doesn't do me any good to know that I can get a place the size of a CVS for $151,000 in San Antonio. Matt, you knew
You're all welcome.
Yeah, he says, Matt, you knew I would chime in about the Fast and the Furious. Spencer said to start with the first one, but you don't care about the characters or the series running storylines. I recommend starting with Fast 5. It's the best pure action movie of the 9, and a lot of the lore that the last several movies build on starts here. If Fast 5 doesn't do that for you, skip the rest.
Okay.
Glad to hear about Creed 3 and Michael B. Jordan directing. For my money, it's a toss-up between Creed and Cobra Kai for the best execution on what should have been a cynical nostalgia cash grab. I agree. Peter says, I openly laughed in my car about Jared Leto's Juggalo Joker being written into the Snyder Cut. It's the clearest symbol of what a mess DC movies are. DC fans have to be looking jealously at the stability and continuity of the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Oh gosh, I thought I was gonna say the Marvel
Wow.
Universe. Yeah, you're right. And that's saying something.
When you mentioned Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight, I made the same ooh sound Spencer made at the same time. I don't know anything about Moon Knight, but Oscar Isaac was great as Poe Dameron, at least as much as he was allowed to be, and he was outstanding as Ex Machina. I'm most of the way through Iron Fist season 1. It is much better than I expected. The elephant in the room is that no matter what, it's irritating to hear a white guy talk about Zen and Buddhism. Also, it has Eastern-inspired martial art themes, but the fights are shot in close-up, choppy American style, as opposed to the wide, well-lit, continuous shots of Chinese martial art movies. It looks like actors that learn martial arts, rather than martial artists who learn to act. All that aside, storylines and conflicts are solid, and it follows up on some of the loose ends from the second half of Daredevil Season 2. And the villains are great. Madame Gao from Daredevil takes a bigger role, and Faramir is creepy, approaching the level of Kilgrave. I'm looking forward to rewatching The Defenders after this. A lot of it that didn't make sense probably depended on the events of Iron Fist. Plus, I may have a crush on Colleen Wing. I probably won't watch Hubie Halloween. I enjoy the 90s Adam Sandler and Chris Farley comedies, but my wife hates them. I have limited time to watch my own shows, and I doubt I'll get to Hubie anytime soon. My youngest 2 kids have scared very easily, and we have to be very conservative with Halloween shows. We rolled the dice on Nightmare Before Christmas this year, and Max loved it, so that's this year's favorite. I think he's probably still too young for Ghostbusters or Beetlejuice, and I never got into Hocus Pocus. So, Jack Skellington remains the king of Halloween in our home. Cheers, Peter Christensen. I think Ghostbusters or Beetlejuice is probably too mature. I'm not going to lie. But I like that.
Yeah, and never mind. I've talked about Beetlejuice, the one Jesse and I watched it. I don't need to go into that. It's not good, guys.
By the way, Matt, Peter says, P.S.
Oh boy.
I watched Mandalorian Chapter 9 and listened to your Sidekick podcast.
Hey.
I agreed with basically every word you guys said, and I'm down for a group watch when Chapter 10 comes out.
Oh, interesting idea.
That is an interesting idea. I was like, ooh. Here's the only thought I have, though.
It'll be my second time for sure.
Right. Well, yeah.
We could do that. We could do like a Super Friends group watch on like a Sunday afternoon or something.
I would totally be down with that, but it would definitely have to be after I've watched it one time.
Agreed.
Because didn't you say on the group watch?
He's got to go take a pee.
Right.
Come on, man.
Yeah, right. Didn't you also say that like you can do like the little emojis and they like float on the screen and?
Yes.
Yeah,
it would be fun a second time when you watch it. Legit,
yes.
Like, that would be fun. I would be down for that. That would be great.
Yeah, we should talk about that. We should talk about that off the podcast, and we'll put together that idea. All right, let's move over to Facebook. We've got Debbie Powers. She says, "It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown."
Okay, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Classic standard. Going over to Twitter, we've got Ryan Kubacki at RMK Buried Alive. Not sure about a favorite, but I do love how It Chapter 1 and the Halloween remake that came out a few years ago really nailed the vibes they were going for. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to watch any of those because they look scary.
I was a little disappointed in it, to be honest. But the Halloween remake was good.
Okay.
It was good. It's not, nothing can ever beat the original Halloween. Is the greatest, to me, like horror suspense thriller of all time. But anyway,
I'll take your word for it. El Maiko at Gizpika says, have you guys heard of this movie, Hubie Halloween, on Netflix? That was a great Halloween film. Worth at least a watch, if not a podcast about it. Well, I appreciate that. Mike El Maiko. Very well played. Very well played, sir. Skinny Matt at Skinny Matt K says, I wouldn't call it a Halloween movie, but I love to watch The Witches with Angelica Houston during this season. That movie is so good and scares the crap out of young kids.
Nice.
I don't know that I've ever seen that one again.
I have not.
I don't think
Jesse's read the book. We talked about it because they had the HBO Max remake come out with Anne Hathaway last month, and we were like, should we? And then we were like, no, because it's HBO Max, and I don't want to give them anything if I don't have to because they're stupid and I hate them. And so we didn't do it.
Just call it HBO Plus. Come on. Get on board.
Come on, guys. Just get anyway.
All right. The GND FLR at DSpin67 says Halloween. I watched it last night. This was the movie that started the whole horror / slasher genre. Horror slasher. I shouldn't say horror / slasher. Horror / slasher genre in the late 70s and 80s.
Yes, amen.
Fair enough.
Amen.
All right, going over to our Discord. We've got I Am Heather. She says, I don't necessarily have to watch it, but I do enjoy watching Scream. Would love to go back and watch Nightmare on Elm Street again because I'm curious how they hold up. I still remember having nightmares about those as a kid.
Yeah, Scream's good. Scream was kind of one of those first ones to kind of turn the slasher scene on its head and kind of make new rules, new headway, so it wasn't as predictable as kind of the formulaic way that we know slashers now. We could do a podcast on slashers. I'd love to do that.
I think you'd be on your own.
That's okay. I can talk to myself about slashers all
I have seen Scream.
Okay. Scream was good.
That's about
Drew
it.
Barrymore.
For like
a hot sec.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Tim Paulin says, we watched the Simpsons Halloween episodes last night. There's even a great pumpkin copycat in there. Yeah, you can't go wrong with the Treehouse of Horrors Simpsons episodes. Those are always good. Always good.
I need to watch The Simpsons. I still haven't
watched you should.
Episode. My whole life. Never watched one start to finish, ever.
So good. Sally Eddy says, Beetlejuice, Hocus Pocus, Addams Family, and Addams Family Values. And then to finish the night, always Nightmare Before Christmas, because it counts as a Halloween and Christmas film.
Love it.
Love it.
I think that would be an interesting podcast. Is the Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween or a Christmas movie? And then we present our cases and the Super Friends decide. Is it Halloween? Is it Christmas? I have
this is Halloween. This is Halloween. I mean, they have a song.
It's a Halloween movie.
Right.
It's a Halloween movie.
Yep.
Anyway, moving on.
We should have which movies are not Christmas movies, although they masquerade as Christmas movies, and then we each have to watch one, and we choose for each other which one we watch. What do you think of that idea, Matt?
Oh gosh, no! I know where this is going.
I'm going to get you to watch Die Hard. It's going to happen one day.
Make me watch Gremlins.
Ooh, Gremlins. Oh, that's so good. Anyway, the last one we have. Bernabe Butterteeth says, we've been watching Addams Family a lot. Guess that counts. I think the Addams Family counts.
Totally.
I totally think it is. All right, that is all the answers we had this week. Thank you so much, Super Friends, for your answers to our Halloween movie. We love interacting with you. Matt, Super Friends are out there. They're helping us out every week. How can they assist us this week?
Like always, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for subscribing and downloading and listening and interacting and hopping on Discord and chatting with us. We love it. We love interacting with you guys. So thank you so much, Super Friends. Y'all rock. This week, in addition to all of that and subscribing on YouTube, shout out to, everybody who watches on YouTube.
What up?
This week, what you can do is, okay, this week I noticed, and by this week, I mean last week, we're talking before Halloween hit. Every store was like rocking Christmas stuff. You can't even find Halloween stuff.
It's true.
You can't even find it. And I'm all about celebrate early, all about it. I decorate early. For Halloween, we put indoor decorations at the first week of September. And I'm all about it. But how can you do Christmas before Halloween has even happened? That made me a little mad. But now for us, it's officially time to get your merry on. So whether you're a believer in celebrating Christmas a little early or whether you celebrate it right on time, there's no right, there's no wrong. Listen to one Christmas song this week, just one, and get yourself in a smile, warm, cozy mood. And that's it. That's all I want. Just one Christmas song.
I like that.
That's it.
I like that. And can I say, as someone who's been a devout Christmas doesn't start till December 1st, devotee of the Scrooginess, the last couple of years I've started opening up a little earlier to like getting ready for Christmas, and just with like all the stress and the COVID and all the shutdowns and whatnot, like I'm just ready for Christmas season. I'm ready for our house to be decorated because I swear our house looks the best it ever looks during the Christmas season with all the decorations. I put up lights last year. I'm going to put them up again this year, probably this weekend, because it'll still be warm-ish. Like, bells will be ringing. Let's get into this thing.
You know what?
Sad
news. This is the greatest day of my life. Hearing this from you, I can't. I'm so happy.
I need that Christmas love, man. I'm all about it. It's why I've been jumping ahead in Animal Crossing to like when the snow's on the ground and like I'm like getting the ornaments ready. Like they haven't even dropped the Christmas patch yet and no update, and I'm already like going ahead and like trying to rig the system and get as much stuff as I can and redoing things so that when Christmas hits, I'm like, ooh, Winter Wonderland.
Beautiful, man. Just beautiful.
We need some positivity.
Yes, sir.
Now, having just said that, we have to talk about something that's kind of sad. And that's our discussion tonight. So, if you follow this podcast, if you follow nerd and pop culture news, you are going to notice that something happened this last week that happened on Halloween that we have not brought up yet because we wanted to give it a little more due. And that's we wanted to talk about the passing of Sir Sean Connery. And I didn't just want it to be like a little quick blurb and boop, and we're done. Sean Connery obviously passed away at the age of 90. So, first of all, like, he had a good long run. Long run. But he passed away. And Sean Connery has been a staple in cinema since like the early 1960s. And he really helped define a whole genre of movies, the spy thriller, the James Bond movies that really, like, because of him, became a big thing, which is why the Bond movies have continued on up to where we're like at Bond 25, Bond 27, Bond 42, whatever we're up to now, that they're, still working to release. Why the James Bourne? Wow. The Jason Bourne movies. I told you, man, it's a night. Why the Jason Bourne movies and those books? Because they were written. The Bourne books were books that were written kind of after Ian Fleming's novels of James Bond. So Sean Connery like really helped show like that could be a viable movie type.
Yeah.
An archetype of a movie. And he's had a very storied career. And so I kind of thought it might be fun to talk a little bit about his life, but talk about our favorite Sean Connery movies, things that he's been in, things that he's done a little bit. Because Sean Connery's Sean Connery. Like, he's the man. I mean, he was voted like the sexiest man alive in like the 90s when he was like in his like 80, like 60s, 70s, something like that. Like,
Right.
he's,
Right.
there's a reason why he's been a heartthrob for decades to many, but also like the man's got some serious, and I mean serious acting chops. So I thought Matt, it might be a kind of a good idea to talk about Sir Sean Connery.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. I mean, the list is long.
Yep.
Surprise to anyone and everyone, and it spans several decades. I mean, he was acting actively from like the first thing. We're talking like the 1950s, the
Yeah,
mid
54.
1954, and then his latest being 2012,
Right.
which was a voice when he played himself. And that was kind of, he did mostly voice acting in the last, 20 years of his life.
Yep.
It's very, what's interesting to me is, and this will be evident as we discuss Sean Connery, his life and movies, I'm not familiar with a lot of his work.
Yeah.
Most of the heart of his popularity was before I really cared who Sean Connery was, and I didn't grow up with those kind of James Bond movies. It just wasn't my thing, or it all happened in like, I don't know, the early 80s, and there were only the big ones that I really cared about, or they're rated R, right? And I couldn't see rated R movies. And so there was a whole lot of stuff that was a barrier to entry. I'll say that. It had several barriers of entry. However, and this is a testament to his I don't know, his just omnipresenceness. I don't know how to say it. Omniscience.
Yep.
I knew exactly who he was.
Mm-hmm.
I could do his voice.
Oh yeah.
And I knew the movies that he was in, though I'd never seen them. Though I would never say I'm a huge Sean Connery fan. I know exactly who he is, and that just is a testament to his brilliance and his accessibility and his sexiness, so to speak. And when in preparation for this, because I'm a Sean Connery novice, I watched kind of a highlight reel,
Okay.
like a tribute that was put out over the last few days, where it was like 15 minutes, and it showed every movie that he was in, and I went, "Ooh, I get it. That's a looker."
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's James Bond. Oh, yeah, I'd watch that. And I was a little surprised, because what I'm familiar with is old Sean Connery.
Okay.
Like
Yep.
65 and older. And again, that's mid 80s and on.
So for you, it's kind of like how your grandparents, right? Like,
exactly.
Your grandparents have always been old to you.
Yes. Yeah. So this was kind of cool to see him in his younger days, and I enjoyed it. I mean, and to kind of read up on him and look at his achievements, which I know we'll talk about in some of these movies he's been in, and how iconic they are and how they've been important to film and pop culture. But I just wanted to give my little 2 cents as to kind of my experience with him and his career and his movies. And And again, it will be obvious that I don't know as much as Spencer does as it pertains to Sean Connery, but there's a lot of respect. And Jesse and I both kind of were like, we've seen these movies, but I don't remember because they're so old in my mind.
Mm.
And but there's one in particular that I'll chat about later that is not old in my mind, that is on the brain and is there at least probably once a year.
Nice. Nice.
So anyway,
So let me start off by saying, like, I think my first movie that I saw Sean Connery in was probably James Bond Doctor No, which was like the movie, because like you said, he started acting in 54. Doctor No came out in 1962.
yeah.
But for me, when I saw this, it was probably like 1994, maybe, because I was really starting to like flex my cinema files muscles.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember someone saying, like, "Oh, we should watch some James Bond movies," because, like, I think Timothy Dalton, I think, had just finished his run as James Bond. It was right before Pierce Brosnan was going to start his run as James Bond with GoldenEye, which was like 1996. So this was around 94, and I had a friend, and he said, my dad loved the Sean Connery Bonds. And I was like, oh, cool, let's go down to, Planet Video and go rent a few of them. And we rented, it was like Dr. No, Octopussy, and Goldfinger. And I remember like watching them, and I went like, he's exciting, he's interesting, but it's a 1960s film, so the pacing is very slow. The plot is interesting, but the pacing is just very, very slow. And then you get some action, but it, by the 1990 standards, Dr. No for me was just kind of like, it's great to go back and I think watch that because it's a piece of cinema history. It really kicks off this huge genre. And I remember, though, watching Goldfinger. And I don't know why, but still to this day, the theme song from Goldfinger is stuck in my brain. Like, someone just says the word Goldfinger, and I'm thinking Goldfinger. Like, I just hear it. Da 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 da. Like, it's in my brain. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it is. And there's that scene where like Blofeld has Bond trapped, and he's on the like table, and he's got the big lasers, like, and Bond just like so casually says like, "Do you expect me to talk?" He says, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." And like, I don't remember the whole plot of that movie, but I remember that I loved the music from it. At least I loved the theme song. I remember that I loved the villain in it. I thought that it, like, compared to like Dr. No, it seemed that the pacing was a lot better, even though it's still like slower by today's standards for sure. I loved it. So I've seen every Bond movie that Sean Connery has done. I tried watching some of the Roger Moore stuff, and I couldn't stand it. So I went back and I've seen them all. And the funny thing is he did like a Bond film in like 62, 63, 64, and then it jumps a little bit to like the like a little later 60s, and then jumps to the early 70s, and then he's away for like a decade. And he comes back in like 83 and like Never Say Never Again, which literally was an inside joke because he told like his wife, is like, I'm never going to be in one of these movies again. Because he actually kind of hated it, which is the real funny thing. He kind of hated being in these movies because he considered himself to be a really like proficient actor, and people just started seeing him as only James Bond. And he didn't want to be typecast. And so he's like, I'm never going to do this again. And so then in 83, when they asked him to come back and they convinced him, they literally made the title of that movie an inside joke to the fact he said he would never do it again. And so they called it Never Say Never Again. Brilliant. brilliant.
Awesome.
So that was like my first big exposure. And then of course, like, I want to say 1995, he was in a movie called The Rock. And it was it was a it was a movie that um basically I don't know, 95, 96, maybe somewhere right around there. Anyway, he was like it was a Nicolas Cage movie. Nicolas Cage is riding this huge wave of, like, you know, he'd done Con Air and Face Off and like all these movies that just kind of came out like right at the same time. And basically they had to infiltrate Alcatraz in order to like stop some like general who's taken over, who was threatening to use some VX gas to like gas the entire city of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And Alcatraz is pretty much impenetrable. So what do? They go find the one guy they've got locked up in like this maximum security prison, who's this escape artist, the only man that they know that's escaped from the Rock, from Alcatraz, to help break them into the Rock, and that happens to be Sean Connery. And I remember watching that, and like, I was there for the Nick Cage film, but I remember that I just couldn't help wanting to see more of Sean Connery. And like, I found that I cared less and less about the Nick Cage, the crazy Nick Cage, and was like, show me more about Sean Connery. Like, I want to know more about like how he did this and how he escaped, and like, you know. So I loved that. Like, I started going back and watching old stuff and new stuff. And then of course there's two other films I want to talk about. I'll talk about one of them, and then I'll let you talk about your one, and then I think I'll hit the last one. But for me, in our household, probably one of the biggest movies that had Sean Connery in it, that, I mean, this thing probably played a few times a year, was 1990's Hunt for Red October. Yeah. My father loved that film. My dad watched literally, I think, like 4 or 5 films, and we could always like, we could peek our head in and we could immediately know what dad was watching. And Hunt for Red October was one of those films. It's the story about basically a Russian submarine that parks off the coast of the United States, intending to defect. And Sean Connery is the captain of the submarine, of this Russian submarine, and he wants to defect to Jack Ryan, who happens to be a CIA analyst, who happens to figure out what this Russian captain is trying to do, and ends up getting aboard the Red October, the name of the submarine, to help figure a way to bridge the gap between the Russians and the Americans, because this is like 1984, which I think this is actually based off of a real true story anyway. Sean Connery is just amazing in this. Of course, Sean Connery's not Russian. Not at all. But for some reason, for years, I thought he was. Because he seemed so convincing to me in that movie. I was like, he's Russian. Like, he's got to be Russian. Okay, Sean Connery's a Scotsman. He's from Scotland. He's Scot through and through. Like, he advocated for Scottish rights and for an independent Scotland. Like, he's not Russian. But the fact that I so bit down on that hook, and it got me hook, line, and sinker, that just shows me how amazing of an actor he really is. So if you want to go watch a great movie, it's just like kind of like a political thriller, Hunt for Red October. Alec Baldwin, Sean Connery. Alec Baldwin's good. James Earl Jones is good in it. They're fine. But man, whew, Sean Connery just chews up the scenery he's in that one. Ooh, I love it.
I've seen it, but I don't remember it. That's one of the only movies that I know that I've seen of his that I was just young. I think I might have seen it in school even.
Oh, really?
I haven't had a chance to revisit it. The obvious movie for me with Sean Connery is The Last Crusade.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
For me, that's a classic, and one of my certainly the second best of all the Indiana Jones films in my opinion at least. And he plays Indiana Jones's father.
Yep.
And I learned some interesting stuff as I was obviously he's excellent and he plays it so well. And the way they've got it written is both sad and funny at the same time, where it's
Yeah.
obviously a very strained relationship, but there's comedic pieces that make it so it's like, I get it. You know, like I have a tough relationship with my dad sometimes too, and you know, our hearts are trying to be in the right place. But what's interesting is Steven Spielberg, it didn't tell George Lucas that this was his plan, but he wanted Sean Connery. I mean, that's kind of how the story goes.
Yeah.
Is he wanted Sean Connery to play this role of Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford's father, and allegedly Lucas was also kind of thinking along the same lines. Had always been a fan of Sean Connery and had written the character as this kind of crazy and eccentric character, which he knew that like an older Sean Connery could play because he was a fan of him during the James Bond movies, and this is in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's been a hot minute, right? And he's put on some graceful aging years, which let's just shout out to how good he looked for how, man.
Yep.
Anyway, also Harrison Ford, since we're on the same train, like aged well.
Yes.
Initially, I didn't realize this, but Sean Connery turned down the role when he was presented it. Did you know that?
I think I'd heard that.
Yeah, he turned it down because he's like, I'm only 12 years older than Harrison Ford, so this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Right.
But they continued to work on him, and they really felt that he was kind of the one for this role, and he ended up taking it, obviously. And this is an iconic role that just I think this was the one, at least for me, this is the one with the staying power for the those of us kids that were born in the 80s, late 80s, and those in the 90s. He's part of a iconic franchise at this point that we're actually going to continue to watch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
James Bond, there's like 100 movies, and I get that he's good in those, but as you mentioned, they're just slow paced. I mean, in comparison, but Indiana Jones is just excellent, and I will fight anybody who thinks that Indiana Jones is not still excellent in 2020. It's still excellent.
We just watched it with the kids.
We watched The Last Crusade only a couple months ago.
Yep.
It's still so good. And anyway, it's just interesting to hear kind of that behind the scenes of it. He plays it well, and the banter and the connection between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery is obvious. It's evident.
Yeah.
They have great chemistry. Allegedly, there were quite a few improvised lines from both of them as they were bantering back and forth about life,
right?
As their characters. So it was a lot of fun for him, and you can tell it's a great story. I mean, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, like, in both of their heydays, like, come on.
So it's funny you brought up the fact that he turned down the role and then kind of had to be like talked into it. There's another role that he turned down, and I want you to think. You may know this, you may not know this. If you haven't heard this, I want you to think about this for half a minute and think how this would have changed this movie franchise. Originally, he was offered the role of Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies, and he turned it down. He said he didn't understand why anyone would care.
All right.
How does think about that for a minute.
Sit down here for a minute. I had no idea. First of all, I definitely had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a dramatic change. That changes everything.
Ian McKellen was, I think, perfect casting.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem. But I start going back, I'm like, how would that have been with Sean Connery, with the Scottish accent and, And you know what?
He would have been better as Saruman, I think. He could have done
Oh,
that one.
ooh,
Right?
yep,
That would have worked well.
yep,
But anyway,
yep.
he wasn't being
He
up. He
wasn't.
wasn't up for that
He
role.
was.
But
You remember also like
Gandalf, wow.
he was also offered the role of the architect in the second Matrix movie, and
Really?
he turned that one down as well. Which like
Huh.
I can't really remember like who the actor is that played the architect, but if it would have
Yeah.
been Sean Connery, that actually would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, the last movie I want to talk about that's one of my favorite Sean Connery performances is actually a movie he won an Academy Award for. He won an
Oh.
Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in 1987's The Untouchables. This was a Brian De Palma film. This was actually a film that was basically a vehicle for Kevin Costner. It's about the capture of Al Capone and Elliot Ness on the trail of Al Capone. I mean, Kevin Costner's in this thing. Robert De Niro plays Al Capone, and you've got Sean Connery who plays a Chicago beat cop by the name of Jim Malone. And the interesting thing is like it's a great movie, and cinematically there's some amazing scenes in this and way things are filmed and shot. Uh, but his character, like, I think grounds the whole movie. I think it'd be really easy to be like this is, like a high paced cops and robbers, like
Yeah.
it would kind of like lose the heart. But like his character like really is like there to serve as like this mentor, this guide to Elliot Ness, who's trying to figure out like how do you capture Capone, and he's really like like if you want to do this, you can't be just halfway in. You got to be all the way in because these are gangsters and they live on the edge. And that
Yeah.
his portrayal of Jim Malone, like I get that Kevin Costner was probably one of the largest stars in America at the time, but Sean Connery overshadows Kevin Costner acting wise in that film. I mean, he just really does. I think the part was written really well. I think in a lesser actor's hands, I think that role would have been just okay, passable. It would have been fine. But in Sean Connery's hands, like, it's just an amazing, like, it's a tour de force performance. It really is, which is obvious because he wins the Academy Award. And it's not like this is like the only award that Sean Connery's won. Like, he's won like 2 BAFTAs, a BAFTA Fellowship, 3 Golden Globes, the Cecil B. DeMille Award, the Henrietta Award. Like, he was made a commander of the Order of Arts and Letters in France. He was honored in the U.S. by the U.S. Kennedy Center of Honors for Lifetime Achievements. He was knighted in the year 2000 for services to film and drama. And then in 2004, the Sunday Herald named him the greatest living Scot ever. He was, in 2011, named Scotland's greatest living national treasure. And then, of course, in 1989, he was People's Sexiest Man Alive. And in 1999, a decade later, Sexiest Man of the Century.
Nice.
Like, it's not... Sean Connery was no slouch.
Right.
I'm just going to put it that way. He was no slouch. He was acting royalty. I mean, he really was. And there's reasons for that. I mean, he was an amazing actor. Plus, then, he also played royalty in a lot of things. I mean, he's been in, King Richard. King Richard. He's been in stuff with King Arthur. He's been in Macbeth. Like, he's done, like, all, like, some very traditional classical roles. And he's acted alongside everyone. So, anyway, it's sad that Sean Connery's not with us. He was 90 when he passed. He really, I think, had been pretty much retired from the public eye and from acting at the time of his passing. But it is sad. It is sad in a way because we know that, like, while those performances will live on, we're not going to anymore, and really for the last couple of years we're not going to have any chances to see anything new from him. Unless, of course, you're like Matt, Super Friends, and you haven't seen a lot of stuff he's been in. So I'm going to go 1 second farther. Matt's talked about going and listening to a Christmas song. If you haven't seen a Sean Connery movie in a while, go find something new that you haven't seen him in. If you haven't seen The Untouchables, go see his Academy Award-winning performance. If you haven't seen The Rock, which is kind of just a silly, fun action movie, go see him in The Rock. Find something. Go see him as Juan Villalobos Ramirez in The Highlander. I mean, just something. Pick something, and go watch a Sean Connery film this week. And I think you'll be happy that you did. So Matt, here's the question of the week to the Super Friends. For those that have seen Sean Connery movies, or maybe for those that have caught a Sean Connery movie now that we've asked you to go watch one, what is your favorite Sean Connery movie? Matt, do you have a favorite Sean Connery movie?
Hit The Last Crusade. Obviously.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
While I love a lot of stuff he's done, because of the nostalgia factor with my dad, it has to be The Hunt for Red October. I mean, it's The Hunt for Red October. I love it, and that's my favorite. So, Super Friends, that's our question of the week. You can answer us at all the normal places. You can send an email to fortofnerd@gmail.com. You can get us on Facebook, facebook.com/fortofnerd, Twitter @fortofnerd, Instagram fortofnerd. You can get us on the Discord. You can send us smoke signals. You can send us carrier pigeons, whatever. Let us know next week what is your favorite Sean Connery movie, and we will talk about that next week. And then Matt and I we're going to have a conversation after the podcast tonight about the idea that Peter Christensen brought up about a group watch for an episode of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus with you, Super Friends, and see what we can do about that, because I think that might be fun. So pay attention to the socials. If it's going to happen, we will tweet about it. We'll put out a Facebook post. We'll make some sort of announcement. Because I think we just have to work out schedules, right, Matt? I mean, that's really the only thing holding us back.
Yeah, we need some phone number. You got to find a way to connect with everybody and blah, 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 blah. So we'll figure it out.
Maybe we'll have to use Discord and use like the private messages so we can get it set up or something. So that sounds great to me. I love that idea. Peter, Thank you for that idea. So from all of us here tonight at the Fortress of Nerditude, all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.